Hello, my name is Greg Krinklaw, the developer of SkyTools. In this tutorial, you are going to learn how to manage your projects in SkyTools imaging. SkyTools offers a workflow that starts with creating an imaging project for a target and ends with that project being completed. After completion, the archived project keeps a record of the observations that were made. There are tools, such as the Project Manager, to help you get the most out of this system. Other tutorial videos look more closely at the target selection process and the creation of an imaging project. The workflow videos describe how to follow through and make your observations, or take your images, depending on how your imaging system is used with SkyTools. In this tutorial, I will focus on project management. The Project Manager can be opened from the Tools menu. You can view every project that you have created here. The basic properties for each project are listed in the table. The project name, target object, observing program, I'll talk about those in a minute, imaging system, number of filters, number of tiles in a mosaic, the project type, priority, number of observations that have been made, the nights that the images have been taken on, the overall quality of the images, and the completion percentage, or status. Notice that some of these are marked as done. Others are in various stages of completion. If the completion status is set to auto, a finished project will display 100%. If you have manually set the status to completed, it will say done. Either way, they are completed. This might be a good time to mention that imaging projects are not usually deleted. There is no need to delete a project unless it was a mistake and you never took any images. Otherwise, the rule of thumb is that projects are completed, not deleted. Once a project is marked as completed, it will no longer show up in the scheduling tools. You can sort via any column by clicking on the column heading. Click again to reverse the sort. Select a project and click the Open Project button, or double-click on a project to open it. Eventually, you will have many projects, so there are filters that can be used to narrow down the list to those that are of interest to you. Observing programs can be used to associate projects of the same type. If I select a specific program, only those projects associated with that program will be displayed. In some cases, you may want to record the purpose of an observing program, or some other detail about it. If you have a program selected, you can do that here. You can also filter the projects by selecting a specific imaging system, or target object, or narrowing down by priority or type. You can display projects by their completion status via these checkboxes. When these are all checked, projects with any status will be displayed. Removing the checks next to Not Started or Incomplete will show only completed projects, those with 100% progress or marked as done. The completion status is an important part of managing your projects. So let's look in detail at how that process works. Let's open an imaging project. I'll select my Comet Rendezvous observing program. This is a recent set of images I obtained via iTelescope 32 in Australia. I'll open the project by double-clicking on it. Once you have started taking images, you should turn to the Observations tab. Remember, your images are your observations, so this is where you keep track of the images that you have taken. For projects that require many images over more than one night, this is where you track your progress, so you know what images remain to be taken. Once a project has been completed, the project serves as an archive of your observations. Once recorded here, you could use the Project Manager to find a record of the images taken on a given night, or all of the images you have taken for a given object. By the way, once an observation has been logged for a project, that project will always open to the Observations tab. The idea is that you will no longer be editing the project parameters, but rather logging observations. There isn't only one way to log your images. How much you want to make use of the logging feature is up to you. For simple projects that can be completed in one night, you don't need to log them at all if you don't want to. Just mark them as completed. When you do that, the project will no longer appear in the scheduling tools. Otherwise, those tools will become cluttered with projects that you are no longer working on. When you mark a project as completed, or it automatically reaches the exposure goals, it will be set to be archived frozen. You will see a check in this box here. When this box is checked, the settings for this project can no longer be changed. The reason for this is to keep your imaging system data in the same state it was in when you took the images. When you created the project, the imaging system data was embedded in it. Let's say you created the project for an imaging system at a fixed location in Arizona. Later, you move your observatory to New Mexico. If you haven't started taking images for the project yet, then it's okay for the location of the project to be automatically changed to New Mexico. When you edit the imaging system location, the new system with its new location is written to all of the open projects that use that system. But what if the project was already completed in Arizona? If the imaging system data is updated in that project, the location will no longer correctly reflect where the images were taken. The same goes with any other change to your imaging system, such as replacing a camera or a filter. When this box is checked, it tells SkyTools to leave the imaging system as it was when you took the images. That's what it means by archived frozen. The most basic thing you could do is to simply mark projects as completed as you go. They will be archived and they will no longer show up in the scheduling tools. This works fine for very simple projects that are easily completed in a single night. For projects that require images on multiple nights, logging the images that have been taken tells the scheduling tools what you have already completed, so they will schedule only those images to complete the project. This is the second level. Keep track of what images have been taken on the Observations tab here. Log each image so that SkyTools can keep track of which tiles and/or filters have been completed. Progress can be tracked via total exposure time or via the total signal-to-noise ratio per filter, depending on the setting in the exposure goals. This project has 3 filters, each with a target exposure time of 10 minutes. Each filter is considered to be complete when it reaches a total of 10 minutes. If it was set to SNR instead, then each filter would be complete when the image stack has reached the SNR selected. The project is completed once each filter is completed. If you are creating a mosaic, then the filters are completed separately for each tile of the mosaic. Okay, so let's see how to log an observation. Click Add New Observation. By the way, the real-time imaging tool prompts for the logging of observations as you make them. The ACP Expert tool can query the ACP Expert Scheduler for the status of the images automatically. So in these cases, coming here to log the observations is unnecessary. If you use the scheduler, you will need to perform this step manually once the images are taken and each observation is completed. If your images have FITS headers, then logging them is very easy. Click Read FITS Header and browse to the image that you want to log. If you took a series of images that are all of the same target or tile and in the same filter, select the first image in the series. Click Open. The various fields at the top will be set based on the information in the FITS header. Your FITS header may not have every piece of information. If it is missing something, fill out the remaining fields. It usually won't know which tile you are working on, for instance. The main things you need are the imaging system, tile, filter, start time, sub-exposure time, and the number of exposures in the series. Here, I took 5 120-second exposures starting at 1:17 a.m. The readout time is set in the imaging system settings. That is used to calculate the SNR for the image stack. If your images don't have fits headers, then you enter all of the above information manually. When you enter a series of images like this to be stacked, then the series represents a single observation. So an observation can either be a single image or a series of images taken one after another at the same location in the sky, in the same filter, and with the same sub-exposure time. You don't have to use the image quality, but it can be useful for your records, and SkyTools can use it when it automatically determines your progress. The quality represents your own idea of the quality of the image, or image series, based on your inspection of it. If the focus was bad, the stars were trailed, or if the seeing was poor, then set the quality accordingly. Remember, for a series of images, this is the quality for the series as a whole. If you know you are going to toss out a specific image in the series, don't count it in the number of exposures. Do that by entering a smaller number here. In this case, the second image was bad, so I'll enter 4 instead of 5. The seeing and weather conditions are used to estimate the SNR for your stack of images for each filter. The default values are already entered for this location. Once you set them for an image on a given night, the last settings you entered will become the default. For my records, the temperature was 13°C and the humidity was 57%. If you have specified your exposure goals in terms of SNR, then you should ensure that these values are accurate because they are used in the calculations. If you want, you can add notes for each series of images. Then click OK. The new observation is added to the table. If I set the completion status to auto, SkyTools will keep track of the images that you have logged in order to track your progress toward your exposure goals. If you are working toward a target SNR, SkyTools estimates the total SNR that has been achieved in the full stack of all the images for each filter. To do this, it uses things like the date time, weather conditions, and seeing for each of the exposures. If you set the quality for each image or series of images, and you are using auto-completion, then you can specify a minimum acceptable quality. A series of images that does not meet this quality won't be counted toward your exposure goals. The progress toward the exposure goals for each filter are tallied here. You can edit your observations by selecting the observation and clicking View Edit, or by double-clicking on it. Click on Open in Overhead Sky to see where the object was in the sky during the exposure. The position of the target is marked by crosshairs. If you don't see the crosshairs, press the T key. Note that moonlight and twilight are simulated for this view. The naked eye chart is similar. Open the atlas to see the project marked on the atlas, including the position, orientation, and field of view. Click the camera view to see a simulation of the image. I have displayed a quick stack of the luminance images for this project in the background. This can be useful for things like identifying objects. To do that, once the images have been logged, you can make it plottable in the background of the atlas and the camera view. But for an image to be made plottable, it must have a plate solution available, either in the fits header or in a separate file. This will be covered in an advanced tutorial. To summarize, at a minimum, you should mark projects as completed when you no longer wish them to appear in the scheduling tools. For multi-night projects, logging your observations will allow the scheduling tools to schedule only those observations that are still required to complete the project. Fully logged observations will allow you to have a record of the images that you have taken. Use the Project Manager to find and view your projects later, which contain the records of your images. So that's it. Clear skies, and thanks for watching.